Let's transition. Let's go to Nashville. It's a matchup in the AFC. It's the 1-2 Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Tennessee to take on the 1-2 Tennessee Titans. The Bengals are favored by 2.5 points. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff in Nashville. The over-under for this matchup is 40.5. And so when I look at this matchup between the Bengals and the Titans, let's start off with the Bengals. And let's look at the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, they are led by quarterback Joe Burrow. So far this season, Joe Burrow has only 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 563 passing yards. He's completing only 55% of his passes. But we know that Joe Burrow is currently compromised. We're talking about Joe Burrow, who's one of the best young quarterbacks we have in the NFL. This is a Joe Burrow who, at LSU, he won a Heisman Trophy, a season in which he had 60 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He led the LSU Tigers to a national championship game, and they won a national championship with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase as well. But Joe Burrow balled out for the LSU Tigers. He goes to the NFL, and in his rookie season, he gets injured. Now, it was bad that he got injured, but it was a blessing in disguise from the standpoint of the Bengals were able to draft Jamar Chase the next season. So if Burrow plays in his rookie season, the Bengals would not have had the draft pick that they had the year when they selected Jamar Chase. So he gets injured in his rookie season. In his sophomore season, the man leads the Bengals to a Super Bowl appearance. And then in his third year, he leads the Bengals to an AFC championship game. Joe Burrow is proven. He is one of the best young quarterbacks that we have in the NFL. So he's currently compromised. Joe Burrow is not overrated. I saw some people on Twitter the other night talking about how Joe Burrow is overrated and Tua Tagovailoa is better than Joe Burrow. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Joe Burrow for his career, 84 touchdowns, 33 interceptions, 12,337 passing yards, completing 67% of his passes. The man, outside of Patrick Mahomes, might be the best quarterback in the NFL when he's healthy. But he's not healthy right now. And he's been compromised on that calf. And I thought last week in the week 3 win over the LA Rams on Monday night, I thought we saw flashes of the Bengals' elite offense. You know, the offense that we saw in 2021 and in 2022, we saw some flashes. For that game, the Bengals had 242 passing yards, 309 total yards of offense. Jamar Chase had his best game of the season so far, 12 receptions, 141 receiving yards. I felt like the Bengals were a few T. Higgins drop passes away from being able to get into a rhythm and score more than 19 points. For the game, McPherson, he kicked 4 total field goals. But if T. Higgins doesn't drop some of those passes, the Bengals could have turned those field goals into touchdowns. So I felt like you saw flashes of the Bengals offense starting to get it together. Now, the thing is, with Burrow's injured calf, he doesn't have the velocity that he normally has on the football because he's injured. You know, in years prior, we saw Joe Burrow be able to put velocity and be accurate throwing the football. He's off at the moment because of that calf injury, and he's not going to get better. This is going to be an injury that Joe Burrow is going to have to deal with all season long, unfortunately. I know Bengal fans don't want to hear that, but I'm here to tell you the truth. And the truth is, these calf injuries, they don't get better. You need time to heal a calf injury for it to be 100%. You need time. And they don't have time because they're already 3 games into the season and they're sitting at 1-2. You need Joe Burrow to play in these games, and in order for you to have a chance to win these games, you need Burrow to play even on an injured calf. But I felt like the biggest mistake that Zach Taylor made on Monday night against the Rams was Joe Burrow dropped back to pass 49 times on a bad calf. That's a problem. You need to run the football more with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon for the game against the Rams, he only had 19 carries. You need Joe Mixon to have more rush attempts. You don't want Joe Burrow to have to drop back and pass 49 times on a bad calf. Now, maybe he could drop back to pass 30 or 35 times per game, but not 49 times. They're having him drop back to pass like he's 100% healthy. Zach, you have to run the football more with Joe Mixon and Trayvon Williams. So they got to do a better job of running the football. That offensive line for the Bengals has to create some running lanes for Joe Mixon. At center, you got Ted Karras. At right guard, you got Alex Kappa. Right tackle, Jonah Williams, Cardell Volson. They signed left tackle Orlando Brown Jr. in free agency. So they have the offensive line to be able to run the football more. And then you could take some pressure off of Joe Burrow and that injured calf. Now, when you look at the Tennessee Titans, on defense, up front, you got Jeffrey Simmons. You got Tyir Tart as well. At linebacker, you got Harold Landry III and Jack Gibbons. And in the secondary, you got Kevin Byard, Amani Hooker, Christian Fulton. The Titans defense, they're a middle-of-the-pack defense. Like, they do good against the run. And that's going to be a key in this matchup because I do think the Bengals should run the football more with Mixon, but the Titans are actually pretty good against the run. The Titans only give up 69 rushing yards per game. That's ranked 5th in the NFL. So that Titans front, they're doing a pretty good job up front at being able to contain the opposing team's running game. Jeffrey Simmons, Tart, Denico Autry, Harold Landry, Jack Gibbons are linebackers and their defensive linemen. Give them credit. They've been able to stop the run so far this season. But you can pass against this Titans defense. The Titans defensively, they give up 270 passing yards per game. That's ranked 28th in the NFL. So if Joe Burrow was 100% healthy, I feel like the Bengals would have a field day on this Titans defense. Because I don't think the Titans have the right personnel to be able to slow down a Jamar Chase or a T. Higgins or a Tyler Boyd. But because Joe Burrow is compromised, I feel like this game is more evenly matched. It's more evenly matched now because Joe Burrow is compromised. If he was healthy, this game would not be close in my eyes. Because the last few times that I've seen the Titans play against the Bengals, and I feel like the Bengals have outplayed them. In one matchup, the Titans had 9 sacks against the Bengals. That was in the 2021 NFL playoffs, the year when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. In the divisional round matchup, the Bengals played the Titans in Nashville. The Titans sacked Joe Burrow 9 times and still lost. They still lost that game. So I think the Bengals are a better football team than the Titans are overall. But let's switch sides. You look at the Tennessee Titans, obviously they're led by Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill, so far this season, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 548 passing yards, completing 59% of his passes. Ryan Tannehill, he's not great. I don't even think Ryan Tannehill is average. He's a below average quarterback. He played pretty well against the Chargers in week 2. I think he went like 20 of 24 passing. He had his 1 touchdown pass against the Chargers, but he didn't play well last week against the Cleveland Browns. Ryan Tannehill actually struggled in that game. He only went 13 of 25, only 104 passing yards. Ryan Tannehill is not an average quarterback. He's below average. And the key to this Titans offense, it's Derrick Henry. But Derrick Henry has not been himself so far this year. So far, Derrick Henry has 51 carries, 163 rushing yards, one touchdown for the season. He's only averaging 3.2 yards per carry. In order for the Tennessee Titans to be effective, not elite, just be effective, you need Derrick Henry to play at an elite level. That's what the Titans need. They can't afford for Derrick Henry to only be average. Derrick Henry is still their best player offensively. Now, the last few years, he hasn't been great. Now, last year, he did have 1,500 rushing yards, averaging over 4 yards per carry, 349 rush attempts, but he was injured as well last year, and he still had 1,500 rushing yards last year. But I feel like this Titans offense, they run through Derrick Henry. And so it's going to be interesting to see if the Bengals can slow down and stop Derrick Henry in this game, because if they can, it's going to force Ryan Tannehill to have to beat them. And I don't know if he can. But the thing is, the Bengals defense, they haven't been great against the run this year. Against the Cleveland Browns, the Browns had 206 rushing yards. Now, that was with Nick Chubb, but they had over 200 rushing yards against this Bengals defense in week 1. In week 2, the Ravens had 178 rushing yards against that Bengals defense. The Bengals give up 152 rushing yards per game. That's tied for 29th in the NFL. And this is the reason why I wasn't ready to give the Bengals all this credit for their defensive performance in week 3 against the Rams. The Rams did not run the football. For whatever reason, Sean McVay did not run the football with his running back in Williams. Williams is a running back for the Rams. Now that Cam Akers is in Minnesota, Sean McVay didn't want to run the football. And the Bengals' weakness has been their run defense in the first 3 games of the season. So if the Titans can run the football with Derrick Henry, that will help their chances at being able to pull off an upset. They got to run the football with Derrick Henry to have a chance. Now, obviously, the Titans, their skill position group, they're led by DeAndre Hopkins. They also got Treylon Burks, who's a solid number 2 receiver. They still got Nick Westbrook as well. The Titans skill position group, they are average. I like DeAndre Hopkins, but DeAndre Hopkins, he hasn't been great in these first 3 games. He hasn't been great. So far, 14 receptions, 153 receiving yards, no touchdowns for DeAndre Hopkins. He got to get better. He got to get better, because the trio of Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, and DeAndre Hopkins, that was supposed to be the trio that was going to help this Titans offense produce and be able to move the chains. And so far, he hasn't done that. But I still know what he's capable of. Now, on that Bengals defense, remember, they are replacing Von Bell and Jesse Bates with Dax Hill and Nick Scott. And I thought Dax Hill was sensational in the week 3 win over the Rams. Dax Hill, I think he led the team in tackles in that game. Let me pull this up. Dax Hill, last week, he had 7 tackles, 1 sack. He played great in week 3. So Dax Hill is growing before our eyes. He really, really is. But we got to see how he performs against these elite receivers like a DeAndre Hopkins. Because DeAndre Hopkins is an elite receiver when he's playing at his best. So we'll see what happens. It's an interesting matchup. I thought last week Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson won that game for the Bengals because they were able to apply pressure on Matthew Stafford. Sam Hubbard had a sack, and Trey Hendrickson had 2 sacks against that Rams offense. And so that's going to be key in this matchup as well. Because I look at the Bengals defense, the Bengals fans get upset with me, but that Bengals defense, they're not elite. They, at their best, they can be good, but they're not elite to me. You can't be elite if you give up 24 points to Deshaun Watson, 27 points to Lamar Jackson. Because I feel like you're elite when you go up against elite offenses and elite quarterbacks. Even if they perform well against the Titans, I'm not going to consider the Bengals defense elite. Let's see how the Bengals perform when they go up against an elite offense like the 49ers here in a few weeks, like the Buffalo Bills later on in the season, a team that has a quarterback like Josh Allen. They got Patrick Mahomes as well later on in the season. That's how you know if your defense is elite. How do you perform against the elite offenses and the other elite quarterbacks? But this is a big-time matchup. The reason why this matchup is going to be close is because of Joe Burrow's health. So I feel like right now this is a perfect opportunity for the Titans to take advantage of Joe Burrow being injured. So I'm rolling with the Tennessee Titans to beat the Cincinnati Bengals and pull off the upset in Nashville. I'm going Titans 23, Bengals 20.